Hello, today we'll learn how to find the majority element in an array using C++ language. So what we have to do is we have to find the majority element, that is the element that occurs the most in an array. So we can see here that it's clearly 3 since it occurs 2 times, and this element 2 only occurs once. So the majority element is the element that appears more than n by 2 floor times. What this means is we have to check the number of occurrences of each element. So 3 occurs twice, right? So 3 maps to 2 essentially, which means that 3 occurs twice, which we can see here, and 2 occurs only once or one time. And we can see here that n is the size of the array, and the majority element would be the element that appears more than floor n by 2 times. So in this array, floor n by 2 would be floor 3 by 2, since the size of the array is 3, right? It has 3 elements. So floor 3 by 2 would be floor 1.5, which is 1. So the element that appears more than 1 times is the majority element of this array. And there's only one such element, which is 3, and it occurs twice. And our second example is this array. So we can see that the number 2 occurs 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 times. So that's 4, and the number 1 occurs only 3 times. So n is the size of the array, which here is 7. So we use the formula floor n by 2, which would be floor 7 by 2 or floor 3.5, which would just be 3. So we have to find the element which occurs more than thrice or 3 times, which is 2, because it's the only element that occurs more than 3 times. So the way we will do this is we will use a map data structure to map the element to its number of occurrences. So the way we can do this is by first initializing a map, an unordered map, because we don't care about the order. Let's call it MP. And then we will iterate through each element of the array. So we will iterate through each element of the array. Then what we will do is we will see if the element that I'm talking about, which is the left hand side, already exists in the map. So we can do this by initializing an iterator. To find the element in the map. So we see if this exists using the find method. We see if the current element that we're going through exists in the map. If it does exist, this means if the iterator doesn't point to the end, i.e. the element does exist, then we can increase the count of the number of times that we've seen the element. Otherwise, if we haven't seen the element until now, then we can initialize its count to 1. So what this does is, if we have seen this element already, then it adds to the count. So if it was 1, then it's going to be 2, and then when it gets here eventually, it's going to get increased to 3, and then eventually 4. But otherwise, if we haven't seen it, for example, this is the first time we see this element in the array, then it's going to initialize to 1, and then it's going to get subsequently increased and eventually becomes 3. So this is how we populate the map. Next, what we will do is we'll iterate through the map to actually return this return the majority element. So to iterate through the map, we can simply use auto m through mp. Now if we want to see what the element actually is, then you can just do this m dot first, which shows us the left hand side, colon m dot second, which shows us the count of the element. And L. Now for now we'll just see what this gives us, if this is correct or not. So we'll run it. So this is exactly what we know. 2 is 1 times, and then 3 is 2 times. Now all we have to do is return it here. So if m dot second, which is the count of the element, if it's greater than floor size of the array, which is n, as given to us here, if that is greater than, if that is less than the count, then return that element. So we'll return m dot first, not the count of the element. So now we can just go ahead and submit this to see if it's correct. And indeed we can see it's correct. Thank you for watching.